The views expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station. Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan. This is a Channel 11 News public affairs program dealing with the issues affecting those in the community as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights.
Welcome to Insights. I'm Annie Taylor, and I'm sitting here with Congressman Dr. Dan Benishek of the 1st District. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Ann. It's great to be here.
It's good for you to be here, too. I'm so excited. Now, I want to start talking about that you are a Northern Michigan native and that you have been a doctor or surgeon for over 25 years.
Well, right. You know, I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and Iron River. And frankly, we didn't have much growing up. My dad was killed in the mine when I was young, and I was raised by my mother and my grandmother working in a family business. And I was able to save enough money to be able to afford to go to college at University of Michigan. And then I went to medical school at Wayne State, really because I wanted to be able to live in Northern Michigan and find a job. And I raised my family and practiced in Iron Mountain for nearly 30 years. And I never really planned on going into politics until 2010, when I just was disgusted by what was going on in Washington, how they were spending money that we don't have, and really putting our children and grandchildren's future in jeopardy because of the debt we're saddling upon them. So I did run, and remarkably I won. So I'm happy to be there. This summer I've been working on my 100 Businesses in 100 Days tour, talking to people in small business.
That's right. I've been following you along as well. And the November election is coming up. You are the incumbent. However, one of your stances is creating a stable tax environment for Americans and Michigan. Well,
the biggest issue going forward into the election, as far as I'm concerned, is the economy and jobs. You know, we need jobs here in Northern Michigan. The unemployment rate is double digits in Northern Michigan. And, I want our children and grandchildren to have the same opportunities that we had growing up. And, with this environment, it's difficult to do that. I mean, these people in small business, I was in my own small business, having a private practice of medicine, but I've been able to talk to people in different businesses, retail business, shipyards, small manufacturing, and people have a problem not so much finding customers as dealing with the government and impeding their ability to grow and to hire people. Some of the things I've heard are the fact that the government regulations are becoming ever more intrusive into forming a business and creating a business to be viable. People talk about the rules that they have to comply with that don't seem to make any sense and cost them money so that they can't afford to get a new employee. The other thing that we hear all the time is the fact that people's health care costs are going up. Mr. Obama's health care plan promised us that the costs would go down, but they're going up. In my view, as a doctor that's been taking care of patients for 30 years, we have a great health care system. The problem is it costs too much, and Mr. Obama's plan doesn't do anything about that. It's made costs go up. We need to have some real patient-centered health care reforms. The other thing that people talk about is the uncertainty with their tax rates. Mr. Obama wants to raise taxes on people in small business. So, is it the time for them to invest in their business or to hire a new employee when they're uncertain as to what their taxes are going to be next year? And these are the things that I'm fighting for in Washington, and these are the things that in November the American people are going to decide what they want.
Now, going back to, people are uncertain about hiring more people. Is that what you meant by talking that jobs, if this, the tax increases, there won't be as many jobs?
Absolutely. People, they have to pay a portion of their income in taxes. If that goes up, they're not going to be able to put as much money back into their business.
Right.
In the state of Michigan here, we've had some improvements in the business climate under Governor Snyder. I mean, Michigan used to be 49th in the business climate among the 50 states. Now it's up to like number 7, so that's a great improvement. There are some companies back in Michigan. Some of the things that we're hearing, there's some bright spots in Michigan manufacturing. I just was on a tour with the governor last week in northern Michigan, and there were several companies that are doing well. And one of the things that we highlighted was the fact that we need more education in the trades and in skilled trades. Here at the community college, they have a great program for on concrete and cement production. That's a great trade to be involved in, and we need to get young people into the trades. In northern Michigan, there's a lot of opportunity for welders and for machinists, computerized design and computerized machining. There's some possibilities there. So we've taken a couple initiatives in our office to try to improve the vocational training ability of our local community colleges and have public-private partnerships to improve the trade skills of the youngsters coming up.
And I also want to move into the Health Care Act. We touched upon that a little bit. Now, you are against Obamacare. Would you explain a little bit about why you feel that way?
Well, Mr. Obama's health care bill doesn't fix the problems with medicine, namely it costs too much. The other thing that it does is it takes $700 billion away from Medicare. I mean, Medicare is the basis of our seniors' health care.
Right.
And, I want to continue to save Medicare and make it viable for our current seniors and also make it viable for people coming along. Because right now, the Medicare Trust Fund is going to be out of money in less than 10 years. With $700 billion further coming out of that from Mr. Obama's rating of Medicare, that's going to make our seniors even more vulnerable. The other thing that Mr. Obama's health care plan does is it puts bureaucrats in Washington in charge of our seniors' health care. If the fund goes down, these unelected bureaucrats in Washington are going to be deciding how to make those cuts, what not to pay for, and what procedures to do and who to do them on. I mean, I think that people's health care decisions should be made between the doctor, the patient, and the family, and not having unelected bureaucrats from which there's no appeal making those decisions in Washington. The reforms that we're talking about in Washington are, just some simple things that would make, target one problem. For example, the high cost of health insurance. Well, why can't we make health insurance more like car insurance, where you can buy it across state lines, you can pick the kind of coverage you want, you have 1,000 companies to choose from instead of 3 or 4. Increase the competition in that business so that these companies become leaner and meaner and have to cut costs to get customers, just like any other business. The other thing that we need to talk about, and this is something that you're doing here in Alpena with the Bay Fitness Center, is wellness.
I mean, health.
There's not enough rewards for a healthy lifestyle. There's something that we could really focus on, because a lot of our health is due to how we conduct ourselves.
And Michigan is up there in one of the unhealthy states, so that's key for this state.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are just some common sense approaches that don't involve taking over the entire healthcare system, but focus on individual things that we can deal with and solve the problem. The other thing, of course, that's never mentioned is tort reform. I mean, I think that malpractice is a very bad way to compensate people that have been injured. I mean, the process takes years in the courts. Attorneys take a large share of the judgment. We need to have a system that gives people the just compensation in a timely fashion without all the rigmarole of going to court for 5 years.
Well, I just have to say, I know we could have talked a lot more, but I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And you have another conference coming up, correct? In Tampa, Florida?
Yeah, I'm going down to the convention on Monday. I'm going to speak at the Republican National Convention, so it's really an honor to have been invited. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm looking over my speech, trying to make sure I got it timed right, and it represents our values here in northern Michigan. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, we're excited for you. So thanks so much for coming, and we'll be right back.
Thanks.
Welcome back to Insights. I'm Annie Taylor. I'm sitting here now with Gary Mcdowell, the Democratic candidate of the 1st Congressional District. Now, Gary, you're a small business owner. Will you tell me a little bit about your background as a small business owner?
I'm a small business owner up in Rudyard, Michigan. We have a family business. We're hay brokers. We ship hay mostly to Florida to horses down there. I'm also a farmer of two brothers. We have over 1,000 acres, which we raise hay and other small grains.
Now, since you are a small business owner, the economy and jobs in Michigan are very important to you. And obviously, the unemployment rate in Michigan has been low. What is your responsibility, if you were to be chosen, to get Michigan back on its feet a little bit with jobs?
I understand as a small businessman that small business are the core to our economic viability here in northern Michigan. Well, in Washington, the Democrats just don't seem to understand that we have to cut spending. And Republicans aren't looking out for the average working person. We need to get our deficits under control, but we can't raise taxes on small business and working families. What we're going to do to get the deficit under control is we're going to cut the waste. There was a recent study by the GAO that showed there was $100 billion in savings just by cutting duplicated and wasteful spending. But one thing I wouldn't do is what Congressman Dan Benishek voted to do was to cut Medicare in order to give more tax breaks to the wealthiest. The average senior citizen would be paying $6,400 a year more for their health care. At the same time, millionaires would get an additional $200,000 a year in tax breaks.
So what do you have to say for those people who are unemployed right now? What do you have to say for them? Do they have hope?
Well, definitely. There's and here in northern Michigan, we have some of the hardest working, some of the strongest work ethic anywhere in the country. And our people want to work. We need to be promoting our area and ensuring our children get a quality education so they don't have to leave northern Michigan. They can stay here and earn a decent living. The Great Lakes alone, they provide over 500,000 jobs here in northern Michigan, or in Michigan. And we have to make sure we protect and preserve the Great Lakes. So for those jobs in manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, recreation. But we have to make sure, though, that we don't raise taxes on small business and our working families to get our spending under control. We have to continue to move in that direction, that put Michigan back to work. But one thing I would never do is what Congressman Dan Benishek did when he voted to eliminate air service, commercial air service, right here in Alpena and 7 other northern Michigan communities. That's air service is critical to our economy. We have to be able to move our goods and services. We have to be able to move doctors and seniors and business people. And so Dan Benishek was wrong there. And recently, he stated that the reason we have high unemployment in northern Michigan is because the people here don't want to work. And what a terrible message to come from our congressman, who should be promoting business and encouraging business to come to northern Michigan, not saying that our people are lazy.
Now, going back to the deficit, obviously you feel that there has been wasteful spending. How do you feel that will have to change? How do you think you'll be able to help that?
Well, just recently there was a study by the GAO pointing out that there's $100 billion in savings just in duplicate and wasteful spending. And that's what we need to do. We need to start cutting the waste first.
Now, you've already discussed the Great Lakes, and I know that's something that's very important to you. Why do you feel, obviously Michigan has tons of lakes, but why are you so passionate about them?
Well, the Great Lakes are a treasure of immeasurable value, just for our way of life. It defines us here in Michigan. But also, they're such a strong economic driver, too. A recent survey by the University of Michigan said there's 1.5 million jobs directly related to the Great Lakes and over 500,000 right here in Michigan. So it's so important that we make sure we preserve and protect our Great Lakes, not just for the way of life, but also for the jobs that they bring. And Congressman Dan Benishek has actually hurt the Great Lakes, put the Great Lakes at greater peril. Just recently, he tried to have and allow cement companies to dump more mercury into the Great Lakes. And it would actually put our cement company right here in Alpena at a competitive disadvantage because they've done the right thing. They've upgraded their plant and did the responsible thing, reduced mercury contamination into the Great Lakes, and other cement plants would be able to continue to dump more.
Now, also Obama and Romney have just sent their representatives to also support the Great Lakes. Were you a part of that in any way, or did you go over there and speak with them? Or
I wasn't a part of it personally, but I was just in the State House. I was known as the defender of the Great Lakes. And we have to, like I said before, not just for the jobs, but for our way of life. And I was very instrumental in banning drilling, protecting our water from being sold off, and also stopping the Asian carp. Dan Benishek, Congressman Benishek, had a chance to do something, to put rules in place. He voted against it. And also we talked about this recently, the Great Lakes Alliance. That's the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, which has helped preserve, protect our Great Lakes. And he voted to slash funding for that. That's wrong.
I hear you. And going back, because we don't have that much time left, but I want to get to seniors and Medicare. And I know that you feel very strongly about these people who have planned for their Social Security, and now it's just being taken right from under them. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I'm going to protect and strengthen Social Security. And back in 1983, when Social Security was looking like it was going to be in trouble, Tip O'Neill and President Reagan formed a bipartisan commission to study it. And they did that, and they found some long-term results. Also, Medicare, we can save money from Medicare. Right now, there's a recent study again that showed that we can save $100 million a year if we negotiate with the drug companies for the price of their drugs. Right now, they set the price, and Medicare, with its huge buying power, is not negotiating with them to drive those costs down, and we can reinvest that money into Medicare to make sure it's solvent for the long term. But I'd never do what Congressman Dan Benishek did when voting to shift that cost, $6,400 a year, onto our seniors in order to give more tax breaks for the wealthiest in this country. And that's going to raise the deficit by $8 trillion. He's just not serious about cutting the deficit.
What's your feedback that you've heard from the seniors about what's going on towards them?
Well, seniors, of course, are very concerned, and we all should be. Here we paid into Medicare and Social Security our entire lives. We start working young, like a young person like yourself. You should know when you retire that that's going to be there for you, so you can retire with the peace and dignity that you deserve and you earned.
Now, before we go, do you have any last words that you would like to tell our viewers out there? Because November election is shortly coming upon us, and you're going to be running, like I said, for the Democratic candidate. Do you have any last words that you'd like to say?
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show. I really appreciate it. The election is coming very close. This is a very stark difference between myself, who's going to protect Social Security and Medicare, not vote to shift the costs onto our seniors. Somebody who's going to protect the Great Lakes, make sure they're there, not put them at greater peril. And I'll never, ever tell the people in Northern Michigan that they don't want to work and they're lazy. You will have a congressman who will be working every day to bring jobs to Northern Michigan, promoting Northern Michigan, and making sure that our children have a bright, strong future and they can get jobs right here.
I like to hear that. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned after the break because we'll be right back with Insights. Welcome back to Insights. I'm Annie Taylor. Now I'm on the streets of Alpena, ready to talk to people about jobs in Michigan, the economy, also the Great Lakes preservation, Social Security, and Medicare, and get their take on what Gary Mcdowell and Dr. Dan Benishek had to say about it all. So come on, let's go. Is the preservation of the Great Lakes an important factor towards Michigan's economy? Well, that's the first question we asked people on the streets.
I'd say it's extremely important. Because the preservation of this allows us to learn from what's happened and what's going on to lead us forward in the future. I'm actually in the marine technology program, so I see firsthand a lot of what's going on here. I've been working here throughout the summer, had a lot of classes here, so it's a very great teaching tool, and the preservation, historical aspects of what's going on here at the museum, it's definitely great opportunities going forward with the Great Lakes.
It's a beautiful part of the country. I mean, this is fresh water that nobody else in the world has, and I think it needs to be preserved and kept. It's also great for manufacturing. It's a way of transportation in this part of the Midwest. It's something that, not only that, but the fishing industry. The fishing is great. The tourism is one of the biggest things that helps us, especially as where we live up in Paradise. It's and also here in Alpena, the Great Lakes are a large part of the community.
We found after talking to people that the candidates' opinions on Social Security and Medicare are two major issues that will be the deciding factors as to who will get their votes during election.
I think Social Security and Medicare are not entitlements, that we paid for those, and I think they should not fool with it.
Absolutely. I'm sure glad I've got it.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up with it. I mean, it was something we anticipated and expected. We also did other financial planning through our life so that we could retire. But Social Security is a very important part of it, and especially with the aspect of the medical, because medical is so expensive. Again, we were lucky enough to have medical benefits, but we have friends of ours who only can depend on what Social Security and Medicare has to offer, and cuts in it, and also the aspect of the additional taxing that they're have looked at in Michigan for retirement for people has made an impact, because we're at the point in life we can't go out and start a business, we can't go out and get a job. I mean, we can't even get to be a greeter at Walmart. So we're too old.
I took care of the elderly when I was younger. Now the younger people should be taking care of me.
I don't know. I don't think they should fool with Social Security. If they leave the money alone and not borrow from the fund, there'd be money in it. If they would just take out money longer from the paychecks while people are working, and be a little more conservative, the money would last.
One thing that people agreed upon was to make sure Michigan job opportunities stayed within Michigan.
Stop the import-export stuff.
Quit outsourcing.
Right.
I mean,
quit outsourcing.
Let us have our jobs back. Without the middle class, who's going to buy all the goods?
One of my favorite commercials is imported from Detroit. I love it. Absolutely, and that's where it should be imported from, Michigan.
Well, that will do it for this week's edition of Insights, but be sure to catch us next week at 11:30. I'm Annie Taylor with WBKB News in Alpena.
Insights into Northeast Michigan has been a Channel 11 News public affairs program. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email us at the web address on the screen. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.